Hello, my dear students, the young saplings of homeopathy in first PHMS. I welcome you all. I know tomorrow you will be giant oaks of homeopathy. I welcome you all in this final module of Bird's Eye View on Personality Disorders. In this module, you will study a superficial view of all the personality disorders which you can understand and assimilate at your level. In this module, we will also understand how conventional science is adopting the concepts of homeopathy. So, before we start, let's make a recap of what you have studied as personality or trait. It is customary for me to make you a quick recap of definition of personality or traits. Traits are the characteristics way of thinking, feeling or behaving which are to be expected to be constant across the time and situations. So definitely, if we are talking about personality disorders, it should be any abnormality in the way of thinking, abnormality in the way of feeling, or abnormality in the way of behavior. So personality disorders are conditions when traits are inflexible, maladaptive and cause a significant functional impairment or distress towards himself and towards others. Experiences of personality among different time frames of life. The personality of a life, the personality of an individual right from the beginning starts affected. It experiences all the environmental stimulus, it experiences whatever is happening around him or her. Even the intrauterine life is not spared from the experiences. For homeopaths, my budding saplings, remember, you have to understand in your life the significance of intrauterine life and experiences happening in intrauterine life also. The first 13 months, 18 months have a very important role. Next, in the infantile baby from 18 months to 3 years, he starts experiencing the outside world. His community grows when he comes to 18 years, 10 years. From 6 to 10 years, his community starts growing. In pre-adolescence and adolescence, he leaves the house and starts interacting with the external world. In young adulthood, middle adulthood and late adulthood, life teaches him all the lessons and his personality is groomed. So, if we talk about disorders, we have to talk about negative psychology, not the positive psychology. So, what is the vicious cycle of negative psychology? It has all been explained here. If we all are healthy physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually we are sick, then we are in the highest level of sickness. We are a burden on the society. So the negative cycle of psychology has its root formed in anxiety. You will learn what are anxiety disorders in this presentation. So anxiety, the uncertainty leads to resentment and bitterness. When prolonged anxiety is there, it may turn into resentment and bitterness, which further aggravates into irritability and dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction leads to depression or mania, and when they go uncontrollable, they may turn into criminality. So this is a vicious cycle of emotions, the negative psychology, which alters the behavior of thinking, which alters the behavior of expression, which alters the conduct of an individual, which may not be normal, which may be immoral. So remember, my child, this cycle of negative psychology. If you have to analyze the negative personality, till now we have studied all the positive aspects of personality, all the hypers and lows of personality. Now we are entering into the practical domain of negative personality, negative psychology. It will be a very superficial lesson for you. This module will be a superficial lesson for you, but it will be a guiding step towards your negative psychology, how to understand the negative psychology. So anxiety, resentment, bitterness, irritability, depression and criminality are the first. Yet another very basic emotion, anger. Anger usually arises from fear. Fear and rejection are the most common precipitating features for anger. Rejection may lead to humiliation, and all the bad acts of criminality, throwing acid, may be a result of humiliation. When an individual feels humiliated, his intellectual conscience gets clouded. Results of a humiliated consciousness are very dangerous. Humiliation may turn into embarrassment. Embarrassment may be social, embarrassment may be personal. We are seeing some very bad, unfortunate happenings in the education hub city. Students who feel too embarrassed, they feel when they are not up to the expectations of their father, mother, or peers. They take a step, a heinous, disastrous step, which leaves a dent in their parents' life. So, embarrassment is a product of cycle of anger. Further, prolonged embarrassment leads to generation of an inferiority complex. And this inferiority complex is the mother of frustration, which leads to disappointed emotions. And these disappointed emotions are a plethora of cycles. They are so vicious that the worst form of humanity has been arising from these disappointed emotions. So we come to, as per DSM-5 definition of personality disorders. My dear students, please remember this DSM level of classification of disease is very important. An enduring pattern of inner experience. Enduring means persistent, लगातार हम जो सफर कर रहे हैं, what we are experiencing continuously, an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates, deranges, destabilizes markedly from the expectations of the individual's culture. यानी कि whatever an individual is happening is not normal to him, is not natural to him, is not customary to him. It is different from his expectations and it is pervasive. Pervasive means it is persuasive, constantly following him, pursuing him. It is inflexible. That means the heinous negative experiences, the behavior, the inner experiences, they are not flexible, sometimes less, sometimes more. They are always havoc, creating a havoc. So, an enduring pattern of inner experience and behavior that deviates markedly from the expectations of an individual's culture, which is pervasive and inflexible. It has an onset in adolescence or early childhood. It is stable over a period of time and leads to distress and impairment in functioning. So, my dear fellow homeopaths, remember, for homeopathy, again I am telling you that enduring pattern of inner experience could be an unborn baby. He could experience that rejection, mother does not want to have a baby, or due to any other circumstances, mother is succumbed to feel she doesn't want to have a baby. The turmoil of the mother, the psychiatric aberration of the mother, the unwanted psychological feelings experienced by the mother during pregnancy are also felt. The fundamental criteria for assessment of personality disorders as per DSM-5, the first is severity scale. The severity scale, it is very important for you to remember this criteria, the 4 fundamental criteria. The first is severity scale, counted from 0 to 4. 0 is no impairment, 4 is extreme impairment. Type match, up to what extent does a patient's personality matches of the 5 remaining personality types, from the unmatched to a perfect match. Traits, realms and features. Personality may exhibit up to the 6 traits or domains: the negative emotionality, introversion, antagonism, disinhibition, compulsivity and schizotypical. These are the traits or the 6 domains which negatively affect the psychology profoundly. Each trait domain is further broken down into more specific trait features, but for initial assessment and initial knowledge, it is important for you to remember these 6 domains. Personality disorders, finally you determine, does the person meet criteria for a specific type of personality disorder or not. Now these are the 3 broad spectrum representations of personality disorders which I can discuss with you, so that very lucidly, very easily, very casually you can understand the personality disorders at your first year level. First is eccentric syndrome, representation 1, paranoid and schizoid syndrome. Representation 2 is dramatic emotional personality disorder, APD, ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, BPD, borderline personality disorder, HPD, histrionic personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder. And last, the most common you easily encounter in your life around others, anxious conditions, fearful conditions or disorder, dictatorial behaviors, and OCDs, obsessive compulsive disorders. So, what are eccentric disorders or syndrome? When individuals behave in a bizarre, weird, strange ways, they exhibit strange habits, they exhibit unwanted opinions which are against the law, which are against the normal domain, which are inexplicable from the most people in their vicinity. This is called as eccentric behavior. That means something which is not out of the box. Out of the box is something different, something which is totally irregular, unacceptable. Because eccentric people have low social acceptability. They don't care about social norms and reforms. They have very less social anxiety about the reactions coming from their behavior. दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा रोग, मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेंगे लोग? What is the biggest fear of people? What other people will think of me? They don't have this. Eccentric people don't think what other people will think about them. They care less about social norms and they don't turn up upon to the expectation of others. Their behavior is against the lines of expectations for a normal moral culture or a normal moral behavior. They are usually negative thinkers. So, this is how you can understand, explain, and identify eccentric syndrome or eccentric behavior. Now comes paranoid behavior. As per the Merck manual, this is a very reputed book. As per the Merck manual, a hallmark feature of persistent pattern of unwarranted distrust, pervasive, persuasive, persistent, constant, repetitive behavior of mistrust, delusion of being poisoned, fear of being poisoned, suspicion on others involves interpreting their motives and maliciousness. When you are trying to be good to an individual as per your personality, but they think you are trying to harm them. They think you are trying to manipulate them. Your every noble deed and action is considered as a negative, malicious, harmful action by a paranoid person. Rarely the sole diagnosis is made in such cases. They are usually associated with some other comorbidities like schizoid patterns or anxiety disorders. Now comes a very important part, schizoid disorders. As per Merck manual, schizotypical personalities, they have a characteristic persuasive pattern of intense discomfort with reduced capacity for close relationship. They are unable to carry on a close relationship. Why this happens? Because of their distorted cognition. The persons who are affected by schizoid personality, it is very difficult for them to maintain a normal, persistent, persuasive relationship. They cannot remain comfortable in a relationship. Why? Because of their distorted cognition. What is cognition? Because of their distorted reasoning or perception. Constant cognition means how we reason out the actions of others. Cognition means how we judge, how we understand the action of others. This is what we mean by cognition. Or how do we perceive the action of other people? This is cognition. And when the cognition or the perception or the reception is distorted, we get schizotypical disorders. The core morbidities are major depressive episodes or substance use disorders like abusive narcotic substances which have a direct effect on your brains, substance use disorders. Now we come to emotional disorders. First we go to emotional disorders. What are emotions? What do you know about emotions? Now you are reading the definition of emotions, that they are prevalent, continuous feelings. The most important word which relates with emotions is, my dear students, feelings. The feelings or tone that is endured internally and impacts nearly all domains of personal behavior to the external world is his emotion. And emotional disorders are described by marked disturbances in those feelings. They include bipolar disorders, cyclomania, hypomania, major depressive disorders, disruptive mood dysregulation disorders. It's a whole bouquet of disorders. of distorted emotions. There is an entire bouquet of distorted emotions, or a constellation or a galaxy of distorted emotions. Distorted galaxy of emotional conditions is identified as traumatic emotional disorders, and they are the most common psychiatric disorders. ASPD, antisocial personality disorders, it's a deep-rooted, degenerative, destructive thought process. Antisocial personality disorder, it arises from a destructed, deep-rooted thinking which focuses on social oppression. I am the boss, you have no right to live in front of me. This social oppression, you are the most superior human being, you are the most superior race, others are nothing in front of you. Felonious means offending thought process, offending behavior. Offending behavior means you don't feel justified, you don't feel good, you don't feel better from those behaviors. You are disillusioned from those behaviors. So ASPD is deep-rooted, destructive, degenerated thought process which focuses on felonious, offending behavior, which focuses on social oppression, and which focuses on criminality, arriving pleasure from others' pain. This is antisocial personality disorder. Etiology for such type of disorders is chiefly due to individuals' lack of empathy. You have clearly understood, my dear students, what is empathy. A person who is purely zero level of empathy is known to commit ASPD. My dear students, next we come to a very important thing, borderline personality disorders. Students, borderline personality disorders is a cluster B disorder as per DSM. And quoting the 5th edition, I say they are hypersensitive to rejection. In borderline personality disorder, what you say? People can't accept rejection, resulting in instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image, affect and behavior. My dear students, the borderline personality disorders, as I am stating, as I am narrating, are hypersensitive to reaction. The acid attacks we see, the rage murders we see, the road rage we see. You see the habits of accidents in road rage, how people are after each other, after accidents. These are borderline personality disorders. They are after the life of each other's after accidents. It's because of instability of interpersonal relationships. Their image is at affect. The self-image, affect and behavior, they are all distorted. Affect means his typical feeling towards a stimuli. The affect means how he responds to a stimuli. That is totally distorted. So he behaves in a way of a rage. His behavior is outrageous, beyond the limits of courtesy or politeness. So borderline personality disorders are coming from hypersensitivity towards rejection. Histrionic personality disorder, this is yet another very important condition which is chronic in nature. Due to continuous psychiatric aberration, histrionic personality disorders arise. And very commonly, the chief attribute of histrionic personality disorders, my dear students, is attention seeking behavior. Yes, you are correct when you say hysterical behavior. Hysterical word, if it is coming to your mind, my dear students, you are very correct. Hysterical is nothing overstated exhibition of emotions. When you see an individual suddenly going unconscious, and soon when somebody comes, he regains his or her consciousness. Or when he is consoled, cajoled, they regain their consciousness. So that means they are feeging. Feeg means artificial unconsciousness. Such a type of disorder is histrionic personality disorder. It usually occurs in late adolescence or early adulthood. But such persons are pleasure seeking, egoistic, and they may be coquettish. Now this, remember, coquettish is your homework. Go and study repertory. It is a very important word in repertory. Coquettish behavior, a very important part of homeopathy. Histrionic personality disorders, individuals love to seek affection in every sphere of life. Last but not the least, narcissistic disorder. Very commonly encountered, where a person feels he is a king, a beggar or a pauper. When states he is a king, he is affected with delusion of a grandeur. A common practitioner, a common man a very ordinary man, when he starts feeling he is a big businessman, resembling he is reigning the national economy, he is affected with delusion of grandeur. You can easily perceive what they speak and what they walk are totally different. Such type of persons are known to be affected with narcissistic disorder. They are unable to perform the phrase walk the talk. Their talking reflects they are as if some big achievers. Ground reality is they are very normal, daily, ordinary persons. But because of their grandeur feeling, inflated ego, their self-made importance is self-made, larger than life image makes them affected with narcissistic disorder. You have commonly seen a cat looking in a mirror, and in the mirror there is a reflection of a lion. A mere cat seeing herself as a lion, that is a narcissistic disorder. Now comes the third representation, the anxiety disorder, fearful conditions, dictatorial behavior, obsessive compulsive disorder. My young budding homeopaths, let me explore you, let me enlighten you that homeopathy can very nicely, intelligently and beautifully, successfully tackle all these conditions which you are studying, and especially anxiety condition, fearful condition, dictatorial or OCDs are beautifully managed by homeopathic remedies. So understand what is anxiety disorder related with uncertainty, springs from uncertainty, comes from uncertainty. It involves condition which is profound worry. Where there is profound worry, that is anxiety, which affects the daily routine activities. You are unable to perform your normal day-to-day activity because you are constantly worried. Associated with immense restlessness, physical or mental, uneasiness, tiredness, the person may get fatigued. The person may lose his interest in working. He starts his work as enthusiasm but easily gets tired because of his profound worry. Fearful condition is related with a harmful negative outcome. You may try to achieve something. You may try to perform something. You may try to go on a stage and take a lecture. You want to sit here tomorrow and deliver a lecture. But what is pulling you behind? How will I able to deliver? Can I deliver? Do I have the confidence to deliver? So rooted in your negative outcome is a fear, and exaggerated fear is phobia. And it is always related with a reaction which is very morbid. The reaction may be coquettish, the reaction may be explosive towards a stimuli which you see is very normal for others. For others, the behavior may not get affected, but those who are fearful towards a particular target, their reaction is morbidly explosive. You have seen videos of persons who are injected with a needle or a syringe. Those reactions represent fear of pointed objects. Dictatorial behaviors, the persons who are blinded by ego, persons who are blinded by pride, persons who are blinded by their haughtiness, they are known to behave in dictatorial manner. They are dogmatic, arrogant, prejudiced behavior amalgamated with their pseudo superiority complex leads to dictatorial behavior. A sort of narcissism may also be blended with it. Obsessive compulsive behavior. You may see it very often, but you may not identify. So after listening this definition, you will be able to identify obsessive compulsive behavior in your life. OCD is morbidly repetitive behavior. Obsessive compulsive behavior is something which is morbidly repetitive. A psychiatric aberration where an individual is predisposed, my students, the word I am using is predisposed towards uncontrollable and recurring thoughts or actions, and is unable to control them. He cannot alter those thoughts or actions, and he is constantly engaged in that monotonous behavior. That is your obsessive compulsive disorder. An individual may wake up at night and starts having a bath. Why? Because they may feel they are infected by the touch of anyone around them. Obsessive compulsive disorder is commonly seen for cleanliness. People are obsessive about cleanliness because of fear of infection or fear of whatever. But a particular stimuli induces their obsessive compulsivity towards a repetitive action. They may repeatedly washing their hands. They may be repeatedly washing their face. Post COVID, they may be repeatedly using sanitizer up to an extent that it has caused skin allergy. But they keep on using it. They may be compelled to think there is a thief in a house and they may ransack the house. They may think somebody is there and they keep on searching the house. So the repetitive persistent behavior when they feel that there is a mistake in the ledger and they keep on checking the ledger again and again, a very common obsessive behavior. So my dear students, in one word, in one statement of Henry Maudsley, if I try to explain the psychiatric disorder and homeopathic correlation, is this line: the sorrow which has no vent in tears makes other organs weep. This entire line is enough to make you explain what a homeopathic student should look for when he is treating a psychiatric or a normal disease condition. So dear students, remember one thing: for a healthy personality, it is very essential that you should let all the sorrow, all the grief, all the negativity come out. One should not be shy of letting his or her emotions out. One should not go follow the false ego, boys don't cry. Yes, everybody should let their negative emotions out in a respectable, understanding way. Now, my dear students, let us see how the conventional science is understanding the homeopathic concepts. Prolonged grief disorders have been introduced in ICD-11 and it stresses that prolonged grief is similar to acute or grief and lasts longer and is responsible for derangement of health. Unexpected death outcomes are the most traumatic experiences. When you will grow up in your homeopathy, you will see natramur, phosphorus, lachesis, acid for so many grief remedies, it is impossible for me to name them here. Ignitia, their grief is out of proportion. And conventional science is accepting that yes, grief is a cause of disease. Now, science is accepting that suppression of acute diseases in nature may induce chronic disease in future, and the suppression of the acute disease, which may be due to any psychiatric aberration, will result a havoc in that child's life if it is suppressed. So it is essential for holistic assessment of personality profile, whether it is a kid or it is an adult. Against the science has identified population level of effects of suppression of fever. Now a dynamic therapeutic doctor, that is a homeopath, knows that when you are reprimanded, when you are scolded, when you are exhibited to a very negative emotion, you may develop fever. I am not saying always fever develops in this way. My statement does not reflect this truth. What my statement says, in some cases of population, fever may come as a rise of emotional suppression. Now science is also accepting this, and hence it is very important for us to review our roots of how emotional tendencies known to create a personality and altered emotions creating a personality disorder. Emotional suppression is related with mortality rate over a 12 years of follow-up. Such an important evidence. So my dear students, before I pen up, I would like to say one thing. You all are schooled, but how educated you are, your time will tell. You all have gone through this presentation. How much you have accepted this presentation, your time will tell. Although we can't go back in our life, but any day we can make a new beginning. And my best wishes for you all for the new beginning. Your professional failures will knock you down. Have a positive spirit. Be calm. You will fight back, because key to success is to stay focused on goals, my dear students, not on obstacles. Focus on the positive part, not on negative part. Thank you, my children. Looking forward to see you all as a successful homeopathic entrepreneur. Thank you. My fellow students, enough has been taught about personality disorders. Suddenly, your brain, your thoughts have been bombarded with all the different types of personality disorders. As a young brain, it is very difficult for you to understand and analyze all these information shared in a single presentation. So, to energize your roots of learning, let me give you a quick recap of what you have done. In this bird's eye of personality disorders, you have understood what is personality, what are altered feelings, how does personality deranges, what are the factors of classification of diseases, different types of psychiatric disorders. All this you have learnt. This is where you understand what is personality and traits. Now, what you are seeing is the experiences among the different stages of life, how personality gets affected among different stages of life. An infant just born, he needs mother's affection, he needs mother's milk. That is an emotional bonding. If that emotional bonding doesn't happen, it has its own repercussions in later life. An infantile baby who receives love and affection from every part, which was normal expectation, but rejection from loved ones, which he experiences from 18 months to 3 years, or in the later part of life from 6 to 10 years, alters his personality, alters his emotions, creates a dent in his thought process. When young boys or girls step out in this vicious world, they are exposed to good and bad touch. And that good and bad touch, if bad touch is prominent, they can harm them at psychiatric level. Their psychiatric thought process could be severely altered. In adolescence, adulthood, when they are exposed to the world, it is very important for them to be reasonably gifted with logical thought process, because with freedom comes a big responsibility. Freedom induces some sort of corruption in your mind, but you have to be very careful. You have to use logic, you have to use reason gifted attitude, that you are not corrupted by your freedom. Again, the psychology of a negative aspect was explained to you. This vicious cycle, if you are affected at any sphere of this vicious cycle, you will come out, because after going through this vicious cycle, you will know what harms are there. Anxiety converting into bitterness, bitterness converting into irritability, going into depression, and depression ultimately, after a prolonged time, converting into criminality. So, if you understand this negative cycle, you can pull people around you, those who are at any stage of this cycle. The cycle of anger is very prominent, because from anger, all the negative emotions are uprooted. Fear, rejection, humiliation, embarrassment. We all know about the negative aspects and repercussions of these emotions. Frustration and disappointed emotion, they are known to create havoc on humanity. The altered psychiatric aberration arising from disappointment had leads to various crimes. The DSM criteria of definition of personality disorders is very important for you academically. You should be well aware of this definition. You should make this definition by heart for academic purpose. The criteria of assessment of personality disorders, severity scale, matching of the type of personality disorders, trait of the personality disorder, and finally up to which personality disorder you are going to be outlined. The representation of all the personality disorders, they have been defined very simply, systematically, methodologically. The personality disorders have been in simple language explained to you. The eccentric behavior, which was weird, not normal, no lack of social concern. Paranoid behavior, where there is suspicion, mistrust, where there is schizoid syndrome, unable to carry on in normal relationships. You should here remember the openness of personality. because relationships were discussed in openness of personality. Alteration in the openness of personality is related with schizoid syndrome. All the behaviors of personality, the 5 factors of personality, have been explained to you in detail. If you will think back and properly think, you will understand all those 5 personality factors are altered and they lead to psychiatric disorders. The dramatic emotional disorder, alteration of emotions, is a very important part because emotional alterations are very commonly seen. ASPD, antisocial personality disorder, arises from degenerated destructive thinking. It feels pleasure in social operation. Those people who are affected with ASPD, they feel pleasure in creating a crime, doing a social operation, inciting pain to humanity is a pleasure for them. Borderline personality disorder, hypersensitivity to rejection, histrionic personality disorders, hysteria, seeking attention, creating a condition where feeding your disease so that you can get affection and sympathy of others, narcissistic behavior, cat pretending to be a lion, inflated ego, delusion of grandeur, anxiety disorders, uncertainty in its actions, fearful conditions, harmful negative outcome, abnormal, morbid, extroverted reaction towards the stimuli. You see a chipkali, you see some rodent, you see a mouse, you see lizard. What happens to you? How do you react? Some people, they don't get affected by even looking at a snake. So that abnormal morbid reaction, dictatorial behavior, haughty, blinded by pride, obsessive compulsive disorder, uncontrollable, unwarranted, repeated behavior. Maybe he wants to check his mistake in his work he has done, repeated checking his mistakes, repeatedly checking the locks of house, repeatedly checking he has wallet or not, uncontrolled, unwarranted behavior which nobody can understand. And the single line for homeopathy, for deviation of vital force, the sorrow which has no vent in tears make other organs weep. My students, most of the times deviation of vital principle, not all the times, but most of the times the deviation of vital principle could be related to this single line. Research has identified how feelings and fundamentals of homeopathy are now related with concepts of disease. So my dear students, focus on your goals and be successful in life. Thank you.